For thousands of years, entire communities across North America lived from a single field. Not rows, not chemicals, not fertilizers. A field that rebuilt itself while it fed you. And when other crops failed, it kept producing, generation after generation. In forests, on plains, even in dry, difficult ground. Then in less than a century, it almost vanished. Not because it failed, because modern agriculture could not use it. Today, as soils weaken, harvests destabilize, and costs rise, scientists are returning to what was removed. This was the field that rebuilt its own soil. And it only worked because of how 3 ordinary plants were forced to live together. Long before synthetic nitrogen existed, farmers understood something we have forgotten. They did not grow crops, they grew relationships. Across North America, indigenous agricultural systems planted 3 crops together in the same mound. Corn for calories, beans for protein, squash for fat and storage. These were not separate harvests. They were one system producing a complete human diet from a single planting. The Haudenosaunee called them the 3 sisters. Buried in this trio was a biological trick that modern agriculture still struggles to copy. Corn, the eldest, stood tall and provided structure. Beans, the giving one, climbed and nourished. Squash, the protector, spread low and guarded the soil, shading out weeds and conserving moisture. Archaeological evidence shows this method fed communities for more than 5,000 years. From the northeastern woodlands to the arid southwest, this system adapted to nearly every climate. 1 mound, 3 plants, a full food supply, no rotation required, no fallow seasons, no purchased inputs. This was not primitive farming. It was something more advanced than what replaced it. But how did 3 ordinary plants create abundance where modern crops now struggle? The answer begins underground, in a relationship modern farming broke. The 3 sisters did not spread because of tradition. They spread because failure was nearly impossible. While monocultures collapsed under drought, pest invasion, or nutrient depletion, polyculture mounds kept producing. Historical accounts describe this system, thriving in conditions that would destroy modern corn. The Iroquois Confederacy sustained populations exceeding 20,000 people using these fields. The ancestral Puebloans grew 3 sisters in desert soils receiving fewer than 12 inches of rain per year. The method required no perfect conditions. It required only the relationship between plants. Seeds were saved and replanted season after season, generation after generation. The knowledge was not written. It was practiced. Children learned by watching. Timing, spacing, mound construction, and seed selection were passed through demonstration. This created resilience at every level. The crops supported each other biologically. The people supported each other through shared practice. For thousands of years, the system held. It did not need to be improved because it did not fail. But something within this system made failure almost impossible. One plant carried a secret that modern science would not fully understand for centuries. Corn is hungry. It pulls nitrogen from soil relentlessly. Squash does the same. Planted alone, both crops deplete the earth within seasons. But beans do the opposite. They create what the others consume. Through a process called biological nitrogen fixation, bean roots form nodules that house rhizobium bacteria. These bacteria capture nitrogen directly from the atmosphere and convert it into a form plants can absorb. A healthy bean plant can fix between 50 and 200 pounds of nitrogen per acre annually. This is not a small contribution. It is the difference between soil death and soil regeneration. When beans grew alongside corn and squash, they did not compete for fertility. They produced it. The nitrogen they fixed entered the soil and became available to neighboring roots. Studies from land-grant universities confirm that corn grown with beans shows significantly higher nitrogen uptake than corn grown alone. This was not rotation. This was real-time nutrient cycling within a single growing season. But nitrogen alone does not explain the harvests. Even with fertile soil, this system should not have worked, unless the field itself was doing the labor. Every plant in the Three Sisters system performed a function no other could replace. Corn grew tall, often reaching 8 to 10 feet. Its rigid stalk became a living trellis. Beans, which naturally climb, wrapped around the corn without requiring poles, stakes, or labor. Squash spread across the ground in broad leaves that created a living mulch. This ground cover reduced evaporation dramatically. Studies show that shaded soil retains up to 70% more moisture than exposed soil in the same conditions. The dense squash canopy also blocked sunlight from reaching weed seeds, suppressing competition without cultivation or herbicide. Some squash varieties developed spiny stems and leaves that deterred animal pests from entering the mound. The result was a self-regulating field. Structure from corn, fertility from beans, protection from squash. No single plant carried the burden alone. Each one reduced the stress on the others. Modern intercropping research confirms this effect. Polycultures consistently show lower pest pressure and higher water efficiency than monocultures of the same species. But all of this only mattered if it actually produced more food. What happened to total yield is what made this system impossible to ignore. The Three Sisters did not produce more by pushing individual plants harder. They produced more by stacking functions into the same space. 1 acre of monoculture corn produces grain. 1 acre of Three Sisters produces grain, protein, and calorie-dense squash simultaneously. Research published in agronomy journals shows that intercropped systems regularly achieve land-equivalent ratios above 1.5. This means the same land produces 50% more total food than if each crop were grown separately. Some traditional configurations exceeded ratios of 2.0, effectively doubling output per acre. But the gains did not end at harvest. Because beans rebuilt nitrogen and squash preserved moisture, the soil improved over time instead of degrading. Yields did not decline with repeated planting. They stabilized or increased. Modern long-term trials confirm this pattern. Polyculture plots maintained productivity across decades, while adjacent monocultures required increasing inputs just to stay level. The Three Sisters did not mine the land, they invested in it. This was agriculture that gave back more than it took. So why did it disappear? The answer has nothing to do with performance. It has everything to do with machines. In the early 20th century, farming changed faster than at any point in human history. Tractors replaced draft animals. Combines replaced hand harvests. Fields were reshaped to serve equipment. Efficiency meant uniformity. Rows became straight. Plant heights became standard. Harvest timing became synchronized. The Three Sisters violated every requirement. Corn towered above beans. Squash sprawled unpredictably. Pods matured at different rates than ears. No combine could pass through a mound without destroying 2 crops to collect one. The system was not failing. It was incompatible. Agricultural extension programs promoted row cropping as modern. Interplanting was labeled primitive, inefficient, and unsuitable for commercial production. Government subsidies flowed to monocultures of corn, wheat, and soy. These crops could be measured, stored, transported, and sold within industrial systems. The Three Sisters could not. Within 2 generations, the most productive food system in North American history nearly vanished. Not because it grew less, because it could not be separated. But removing the method was only half the transformation. What replaced it came with costs that would take decades to reveal. When beans were removed from the field, something had to replace their function. That replacement was synthetic nitrogen, first mass-produced using the Haber-Bosch process in the early 1900s. Corn could now grow alone. Fertility came from a factory, not a root system. Herbicides replaced the shading function of squash. Chemical sprays suppressed weeds that once died under broad leaves. Pesticides replaced the ecological balance that diversity once maintained. Each input solved one problem, but together they created dependency. Soil stopped regenerating. Fertility became a purchased commodity. Farmers who once saved seed and rebuilt their own systems now relied on annual purchases of fertilizer, chemicals, and patented genetics. The United States now applies over 12 million tons of nitrogen fertilizer per year. Much of it runs off into waterways, feeding algae blooms that create dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico, spanning thousands of square miles. This was the trade. Self-sustaining systems were replaced with input-dependent systems. Free fertility was replaced with purchased fertility. But the loss went deeper than soil chemistry. Something else disappeared alongside the crops. The three sisters were not planted from a manual. They were planted from memory. Mound spacing varied by region, soil type, and rainfall. Seed selection depended on local climate and use. Timing was calibrated to frost dates, moon phases, and observed weather patterns. This knowledge existed in practice, not in text. When the practice stopped, the knowledge collapsed within a single generation. Elders who had grown three sisters their entire lives watched their children leave for wage labor. Fields that had been planted for centuries went fallow or were converted to monoculture. Agricultural schools did not teach interplanting. Research funding flowed to commodity crops. By the mid-20th century, most Americans had never seen a Three Sisters mound. The method was not disproven. It was simply no longer visible. What remained survived in small pockets, reservation gardens, seed banks, and oral tradition passed between those who refused to forget. For decades, it waited. It did not disappear. It went dormant. And now, as modern agriculture begins to strain, scientists are returning to what was abandoned, not out of nostalgia, but out of necessity. Modern farming is running out of room to fail. Soil health is declining across major agricultural regions. Fertilizer costs have more than doubled in the past 2 decades. Climate volatility is increasing, and monocultures are proving brittle under stress. Researchers are now returning to polycultures because the alternatives are failing. University trials across North America have tested Three Sisters configurations against monoculture corn. Results consistently show advantages. Interplanted plots use water more efficiently, experience lower pest pressure, and maintain yield stability under drought conditions. A 2018 study found that polyculture systems produced comparable calories to monocultures while dramatically reducing input requirements. Another trial documented higher total biomass and improved soil organic matter after just 3 seasons of Three Sisters planting. The data is no longer theoretical. It is measurable, replicable, and growing. Indigenous farmers who maintained this knowledge are now partnering with research institutions, contributing expertise that was never lost, only ignored. The method is not being invented, it is being remembered. But what they are rediscovering goes deeper than yield. Because this system was not really a farming method, it was a different idea of what a field is. The Three Sisters did not triple harvests through force. They did it through cooperation. Beans did not feed corn directly. They built the soil that fed everything. Squash did not protect corn. It protected the system. Corn did not dominate. It provided structure so others could climb. No part worked in isolation. No input came from outside. The field was not a factory. It was an ecology. This method was not old farming. It was regenerative engineering practiced for millennia before the term existed. It was removed when agriculture chose speed over resilience, uniformity over diversity, control over cooperation. And it is returning now because the systems that replaced it are failing under their own weight. The three sisters waited. Buried in seed banks, whispered through oral tradition, grown quietly in backyard gardens and reservation plots. They did not need industrial approval to survive. They only needed someone willing to remember. The knowledge was never lost. It was ignored. And now, as the world searches for crops that can endure what is coming, the answer has been waiting in the soil for 5,000 years. Resilience was always here, growing together, free.